Hi and welcome back to Cotton Innovations Limited. Cotton Innovations Limited, we love to help companies and give tools to companies and help them deploy and improve their processes. One of the things we've been looking at in this series is design of experiments. This is the second of the videos, and we're looking at interactions. What do we mean by an interaction? We talked about that in video 1. We talked about how you have the three main effects. We call them A, B and C. So your main effects would be A, B and C. We also talked about an interaction. You can get an interaction between A and B. You can get an interaction between A and C. And you get an interaction between B and C. And then also we could talk, and these are called two-way interactions, but then you get three-way interactions. And a three-way interaction with A, B and C. So what do we mean by interactions? So main effects, we're looking just purely at this factor or this factor or this factor. What does it do? How does it drive the process? When it's an interaction, we're looking at an AB, AC or a BC. We're looking at the sides of the cubes or the top or the bottom or the back of the cube. And if we're looking at a three-way interaction, we're looking inside the cube. That's because all three of them are working together and the interaction is happening inside that cube, and we can look at understanding what those are. So let's explain what we mean by an interaction. For that, we're going to make a cup of tea. Being English, we love our cup of tea, so we're going to make a nice, strong but sweet cup of tea. So we've identified 4 factors that we can use. The first factor is water. The second factor for this is sugar. The third factor that we want to include is stirring. And then the fourth factor, so we've been talking about 3 ways here, the fourth factor in our case would be D, which would give us main effects, 2 ways, 3 ways and a 4-way interaction. We're going to have a type of cup. So we now need to identify each of these as a high or a low. So for the lows, we'll put these in blue, the water will be cold. Sugar will be none. Stirring, no stirring. And type of cup, we're going to use a mug. So we're going to set up 4 experiments where we're going to look at making tea with cold water, making tea with no sugar, making tea with stirring, and making tea in a mug. What we're trying to make, remember, is a sweet cup of tea. What we will conclude from this experiment is none of them will make a sweet cup of tea. So what we're then going to do is we're going to go to include the high levels. So now water will be hot. And sugar, we're going to put 2 teaspoons in. Stirring, we are going to stir for 10 seconds. And what we're then going to do is we're going to look at the cup, and we're going to use a china cup. So now we can look at our DoE and we can say, right, well, we've tested these, they don't make a sweet cup of tea. So now let's make a sweet cup of tea with hot water. Was not sweet. Let's make it with hot water and 2 spoons of sugar. Was not hot. Let's now put stirring, but we won't put sugar in there, we're just going to put stirring in there. Before we had no stirring, now we're going to put stirring into it. Will not make a sweet cup of tea. And we're going to use hot cup in China. That won't make for a sweet cup of tea either. So what we can conclude is from our design of experiments that testing each one of these factors on their own is not making a sweet cup of tea. What in effect we have done is we have tested this corner and this corner, 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 for both a mug and a china cup, one factor at a time. And what we'll conclude is none of those make a sweet cup of tea. However, if we look at the interactions, we would find that cold water doesn't make for good tea. It will make tea, but it takes a long time. Hot water makes really good tea. So there will be an interaction between these two in terms of the ideal temperature. In terms of sugar, if we don't stir it, doesn't matter how much sugar you put into that cup of tea, it will never become sweet unless you agitate the water. So for example, if you take a 500 milliliter bottle of water and you add sugar to it, what is the point when it becomes super saturated? Just for fun, 32 tablespoons. 32 teaspoons. It becomes super saturated at 32 teaspoons. In other words, you won't hold any more sugar. So it doesn't matter how much sugar you put into that water. If you don't agitate it, it will never become sweet. Stirring is the mechanism by which it pulls it all together. And the mug, whether it's mug or china tea, has no effect on this experiment. So what we can conclude is it's the interactions between these that causes this to make good tea. So what we need to now do is understand how strong those are, which is the leading interaction, which is the minor interaction, what can we afford to ignore, what can we afford to keep in our experiment, and that's what DoE tells us. How strong are those interactions? So hopefully that gives you a bit of an insight into the world of interactions, what those interactions are, from just making a sweet cup of tea. Please reach out to us at Cotton Innovations if you're looking at doing a design of experiment. We would be very happy to help you build your experiment and help you run through that. If you'd like us to come on site and do some work with you in designing DOEs and running them for you, we'd be really happy to do that as well. Reach out to us, details are at the bottom of the screen, and thank you so much for watching this video. Goodbye now.